attending, myself, Director Bill Balke, Sarah Schroeder, Dave Wilborn, is Michael there?
I am.
Michael, and I believe that's it. Am I correct? Is that everybody? All right. So, call to order. First item, public appearances for non-agenda items. Is anyone online wanting to speak at this point?
So the item that I think I wanted to speak on is on the agenda from what I'm looking at here online.
Okay, Kathleen, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. What item, just for my information, Kathleen, what item will that be?
The review of possible private stormwater management policies.
Very good. Thank you.
Is that correct, Dave Wilborn?
Yes.
Okay, just making sure.
Very good. Okay. Thank you. So next, approval of the November 16th, 2020 meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
Motion to approve.
Moved by Grunetsky. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Wilborn. Discussion, any changes, questions? I don't have any. Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All in favor of approval of the November 18th, 2020 meeting minutes signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. Next, agenda item number 4, a report from Department Head, Mr. Bill Balke. Oh, I'm sorry, no. Yeah, number 4, Board of Department Head. I'm having trouble with my computer here. Bill?
All right. Yeah, we're wrapping down our construction, but development construction is still going strong with Terra Vesta and Stoner Prairie. So we've got those 2 projects ongoing through the winter. And we're gearing up for our next year's construction for the water main construction on Sain Road, the resurfacing project on Sain, the chip sealing, crack filling. We've got a deck overlay for one of the bridges we have. And then got a few projects in design or going to be getting into design. The Sain Road reconstruction from Lacey Road all the way up to McCoy Road. That one's ongoing for design. The McCoy and MM intersection improvements there is under design. What else we got going on? Lacey Road between, where are we going here? Badger State Trail to Fitchburg Road is under design. And we'll be getting a design contract RFP out for the roundabout at that location as well. All those design projects that I mentioned, we're going to be constructed in 2022. So we've got a full year of design going on with those other projects that are coming forward. Yep.
Bill, I'm sorry, I've lost track a little bit. Have engineering contracts been assigned for all those projects you mentioned?
They have, except for the one at the roundabout at Seminole and Lacey.
Okay. All right. I had one other question for you. Are we doing anything this winter in the past? I know they would apply beet juice or other things, prior to storms. Do we have that in our toolbox this year at all? Or is that a county thing?
No, we purchased from the county and from another agency for those supplies, and we put those out prior to when we can before it snows on the main roads mainly.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have questions for Bill? Thank you, Bill. Busy as usual. Next, we'll move agenda items. The first is Resolution R-200-20. I'll entertain a motion to delay this until the December. What would it be, Bill? The December 20th meeting?
I think it's the 21st.
December 21st. I have a motion to delay Resolution R-200-20 until December 21st Board of Public Works meeting.
Motion to table.
Motion tabled. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Wilborn. Right? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Dave,
Yes.
I think we missed a couple items there.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm jumping ahead. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Well, we've taken care of that one. We're gonna jump back up to agenda item number 5A. 5A, review of utility September P card purchases and October checks. I'm sorry. All right, so I'll give you time, everyone time to page down to these. Does anyone have any questions for Bill on the P card purchases?
I only have one question, Bill. I see a couple of them here for Tower Hill patch. What happened in that area? Do you recall? The checks, or there was for 240.77 and 238.78 for Payne and Dolan.
Yeah, we did put a little bit of asphalt down at those tower locations, just for the driveway. So we did some repairs up there and we used, our paver and the asphalt to do that.
Okay, thanks, Bill.
Anyone else have questions? All right, I have one. It's a check 9/30/2020, $1,000 to Sherwin-Williams for a fogger. What type of fogger, or what is this piece of equipment, Bill?
We're using this for our facilities to disinfect with COVID. It sprays a disinfectant on all of our vehicles, in the vehicles and the rooms and offices that we use.
Okay, thank you. Appropriate use. Have we, Bill, you don't have to, I wouldn't expect you to provide any names, but have we had employees in in our department that have been out due to COVID?
Yeah, we've had 2 employees that were positive, and we've had some that were close contacts that had to quarantine. So it has affected our operations a little bit.
Okay. All right, thank you. As most of you, if you work at a company like mine, we've continued to have people diagnosed with it, and it affects our business. But moving on. Any other questions on the bills? Bills and P card purchases, I'm sorry. All right, seeing none, next agenda item. If I can get my screen to stop scrolling on me. Okay. Review of possible private stormwater maintenance policies. And Kathleen, this is what you're here for? Is that?
Yes.
Okay. So, again, we brought this up, I think this summer, this fall, and, we asked Bill to draft a document that would set up a framework, or a possible framework for residents to, get some resolution or a process to follow, so that we don't have to, neighbors threatening to sue each other and all that. We try to set up a policy so we can address these issues. So, with that, Bill, would you like to lead us through this, the highlights and what you, oh, wait a minute, I'm on the wrong one here. No, this is just our maintenance this is just our maintenance, of our stormwater. I'm off here.
You're on 6B?
I'm on 6B, yeah.
We're doing 5B right now.
We're doing 5B, yes.
Yeah.
So, would you like to lead us through this, Bill?
Sure. It's not a matter of what I've been trying to find, it's more a matter of what I'm not finding. And what I'm not finding is a lot of municipalities that have gone down this road of setting a policy in place for grading and drainage. A lot of them, well, almost all of them that I've found have indicated that they're using Wisconsin common drainage law. which basically says that they're using the property owners to resolve the disputes between themselves for drainage. And I've got just a copy here. I can share my screen quickly. So I'm not sure if you're seeing my whole screen or if it's in a, you need it larger.
We see it down through the references, so not the whole page.
Right. Well, that's pretty much it right there.
Oh, okay.
But essentially where it's saying, this is how, courts determine between property owners whether or not there's any damages or nuisances that are created and what each property owner has a right to. And like I said, I didn't see anything that says you can't put your downspout 6 inches from a property line, or you can't create a pond or a berm or something in your backyard to block drainage. It just says essentially you've got these rights between property owners that should be used and determined in a court, whether or not a nuisance or damage is caused to those properties.
Excuse me, Bill. I thought we had something under section 3025 that said penalties and remedies may be sought for such activities, erosion, runoff, or excessive when, in the opinion of city engineer, and unsafe conditions results in streets, undue to sedimentation occurring in water bodies, runoff, endangers downstream property owners or their property or their public health and safety. Welfare of the citizens of the city is harmed, and I would believe, when they deviate getting rid of water, natural flowage and plugging it up, to me, that's endangering the welfare of city people.
Right. So, I guess, are you envisioning, staff going out and doing an investigation then, and then determining that a citation or damages should be remedied?
We actually at one time were provided a map by a former city employee, and it was a geological map that actually showed that in the natural stormwater runoff flow, the neighbors here have actually raised the level of the ground 18 inches or more. And so that is affecting the runoff, and it pulls back up into our property. And we have the back side of our property is pretty much mud all the time, and makes it, we've had problems where we've gotten threatened that we had to take care of ruts in our yard and seed with grass. And I'm like, every time it rains or when the snow melts in the spring, we can't control it because it's pulling back up into our yard because they have blocked the flow of the stormwater runoff going to the backside of the property where it's supposed to go. And then it goes down a natural waterway, kind of makes a creek behind the houses here. We're on South Sayin Road, and we're at the backside of our property is the tracks. I can walk out my back door and wave and talk to the engineers as they drive the trains by. That's how close the tracks are to the back of our house. And then, and I know at one time there were some rocks being moved around, and an official actually talked to this neighbor and said that they were not allowed to put any rocks or anything also in that stormwater runoff that would possibly block or affect it. So right now what they're doing is they are affecting the natural flow of the stormwater runoff that comes off the highways and off the ditches here that go through our property and back. And so they're creating a scenario where that is backing up into our property. So they have blocked effectively the natural flow of the stormwater runoff. And, we pay taxes on that every year. We've maintained it, actually. We just replaced the pipe in our driveway and have been maintaining it for years. It's a little frustrating that we pay stormwater runoff with our taxes every year, and we're the ones doing all the work. But even worse now, we have this issue, and this issue has been going on for years. with this neighbor where they've built it up back there and have blocked the flow of the stormwater to run off the property. And as I said, effectively it blacks up into our property and creates, there's times where we have standing pools of water. We've provided, Tom Clowder was actually the person I gave the map to, a copy of the map to. And also we've sent him many, many pictures showing the pools of water in our yard and driveway that are backed up because that water can't flow where it's supposed to.
Kathleen, why did they raise their property, 15 inches, or what'd they do to raise it 15 inches?
She put dirt in. Well, first of all, so we actually, when some of the Sain Depot and properties down the road here, our property was actually dipped somewhat, and Mike Denson actually helped us bring in some fill dirt and fill things and raise it some, but he actually worked with us to make sure it was landscaped properly and that it kept maintained the flow. And then she married the original property owner. And she came over to my husband one time when we were still in speaking terms and said, hey, can I get some dirt? And he was like, yeah, okay, whatever, because we had a pile of dirt back there that we were going to fill in holes and stuff. And next thing we know, like we said, she took so much dirt that she actually kept putting it in there, and she kept putting rocks and then pebbles and then whatnot, and then put dirt over it. So she had, I think Mike had suggested you could put some drain pipe back there and then put some rocks over it. And then as long as it's a nice loose environment, the water will continue to flow. But what she did is she filled it up with dirt, raised it up, and then started planting flowers, sunflowers and stuff back there. So I don't know if she didn't want the flow coming through her backyard, that it was creating a rut in her backyard, or what her purpose was. But that's what we've been dealing with this for several years. And the relationship is very poor between us and the neighbors.
Let me play devil's advocate. I have to ask you this question, okay?
Sure.
Did she have a low spot like you did, that she wanted to raise up?
Actually, they put a new garage in, raised up the level of the ground to put this garage in, and then their downspouts and whatnot off the garage actually spout onto our property as well. So they increased the flow from their building onto our property as well as blocking the stormwater runoff. So it was running fine until she got her hands on a couple wheelbarrows of dirt and raised that area back there that was designed to create the stormwater flow.
Bill, is assuming they got a building permit when they put that garage in.
Yeah, it's been multiple years.
Is that we typically, that isn't something we would look at in a building permit. That typically a building permit isn't coming to the Public Works Department. Am I correct?
Correct. It would go to the building inspection department for their permitting. And sometimes they do put drainage arrows on their improvements so that it would show which direction the improvements are going to drain from.
Okay. So as I look at what we've written up here, I don't see any path for resolution for Kathleen except to threaten a sewer neighbor.
We'd rather not go that route.
No one wants to do that.
Nothing else, the expense of it, but my frustration is that, as I said, they were warned before in the past, and we've been told for years, you are not allowed to change or affect the natural stormwater runoff that is in place.
Who would have warned them, Kathleen? Who would have warned them?
They've been warned, actually. In the past, there was, I can't remember I'm drawing a blank on every person that's ever talked to them, but there was a zoning engineer that actually did go over and try and speak with them.
Maybe Tom Hovell many years ago, maybe?
That name sounds very familiar. That's
okay.
Possible. He might have been the one that gave us the permit. Or the map, I'm sorry, not the permit.
All right, yeah, that.
Well, and the
that-
irony is that the second garage we have on our property was on their property. We actually moved it over here, got the permits to do that, and put that in place. So there's another thing showing how much the ground was raised. We were able to move that building from their property to ours, and then they raised it up that much to put the new garage in there. Yeah, I mean, this has been going on for multiple years.
All right.
It's frustrating.
Yeah. I'm sure, this is the one we're most familiar with. You know, Tom has talked to me about this, and Dave Wilburn and I have talked quite a bit. I'm sure the other board members have had similar, not necessarily Kathleen's property, but I've heard similar complaints. You know, what people say, a lot of times we'll hear, well, I was smart, I bought the house at the top of the hill.
I know those storms we had a few years ago, you had several people in this area that had major issues with flooding. So I know that's come up as a topic quite a bit.
So let me ask you this, Kathleen.
Mhm.
You know, say a normal, say we get a good rain, you know, and it rains 2 inches overnight, you know, which is a really heavy. Are you,
Yeah.
or do you have standing water in your yard, or what?
Mm-hmm. Yep, majority of the time. We also had an issue okay, sorry, I gotta get my numbers here. Last fall, where it impacted enough to flush out water under our back deck and flooded our basement. We had 3 feet of standing water in our basement.
How much came from that other property, and how much would have been natural flow that would have been there anyway, I guess?
It was basically because the ground behind the house here is so saturated all the time, there was nowhere for the water to go. So it all came to the house. It was when we had that 5 inches of rain in like an hour and a half. And so, yeah, I mean, we obviously have done some modifications in that area now to prevent that from happening again. But the water was, there's so much saturation back here, the water had nowhere to go. And that's a constant problem. We burn wood, we have wood sitting back there, and even to get back there to process that wood, you know, we were doing it this weekend, and we had a little mini ice skating rink, and I was joking with one of the people helping us that, hey, we put in this ice skating rink if you guys want to have some recreational fun while you're here. So, yeah, the property behind our garages is always wet. And at times there's standing water, you know.
How long have you lived there, Kathleen?
26 years.
Did you build the house?
No, this house is quite old, actually.
It was there before.
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to say we were told it was built it was one of those where it was a hunting cabin and then it was extended. But I think the original structure, someone told me, possibly in the 1920s. And then we have an easement for the railroad, we have an easement for the gas line, we have an easement for the power line. All on this property.
All right. I hope you're not taking offense at my questions.
No.
I'm trying to understand it better. Dave Wilburn and I are very familiar with, this was back in the early 90s. We had a large storm event, and we had some homeowners where the Fitchburg, where the park on Fitchburg Road is, and they were, you know, they were all over us that we had done this, and we looked and our records, and we talked to the assessor, and there had always been cattails in the front yard. You know, they were in a low spot, you know, naturally. And I guess what I'm asking is your property is just a naturally low spot to start with?
When we first moved into the house and before she became a part of this area here, we did not have the standing water problems that we have now.
All right, that house was there. That house was there, and you did not have the problems.
Correct.
Okay. And you've been experiencing them for how many years, would you say now then?
I say we started having issues probably about 7 years ago. I mean, the last several years, several different issues, but yeah, the alteration to the property probably has been in the last 5 to 7 years.
Okay, all right. So I guess, Bill, what, Dave Wilborn and I and Michael and Sarah, please chime in your thoughts on this. Um, we're hoping to have something that, a complaint could be made, and don't necessarily, I don't like threats. I don't like, threats of citations and things like that, but, some official, that the city could say, you've done this and we need you, you need to correct this. Otherwise, I don't, X, Y, or Z will happen, I don't know exactly, but, I'd at least like some form that homeowner could submit with pictures, that could be reviewed by someone in your staff. Bill, I don't want this on your desk, I like, you've got enough going on, we have some good people there that they could handle this, that could look at it and make a determination, yes or no, and we, at least, nothing is gonna happen there unless, the city, makes a determination one way or another, and maybe they, Kathleen, I'm sorry, but maybe they make it and they say, no, there's, we're in a wetter than normal period the last 5 to 7 years, I don't know, I don't wanna pass judgment one way or the other.
Right.
Um,
We have filed some paperwork in the past and provided photos. And as I said, the maps were provided to us to show that the ground has actually been altered back there and been raised to create that. So
Okay.
we've worked with Tom Clowder, as we mentioned. We've talked to Tony Roach. I think we actually provided him with some documentation at one time as well. So, but this is a very disgruntled relationship between us and these neighbors. So if you start digging into these two properties, you're gonna find a mountain of paper
Yeah, okay.
with several complaints over different things. So just a warning. I mean, I'm not against trying to document everything again. Winter's coming, so we'll have snow. So in the spring, we'll be able to document quite a bit, or we haven't had too bad of fall rains, knock on wood. So, but we've had, like I said, we always have mud back there, so.
All right, back to Bill, back to your document. We can get that up again. Is there anything in there that would allow Kathleen or some other homeowner redress in the situation and what you've drafted here?
Okay.
I don't see it, but.
No, it's essentially, it would have to be, two parties going to court to justify either the damage or the improvements that were made, and what damages there would be as a result of any changes that were made.
Yeah, I certainly don't want, the city involved in every dispute between neighbors. There's a lot of things that can go on, someone's not painting their fence, or, there's a myriad of things, I don't, Madison, the dumpster fire that Madison can deal with that stuff, but, we don't wanna have that here in Fitchburg, we're a little more common sense people. But, I just feel like we need at least some, at least if we had a formal process, or, I don't necessarily have to have a lot of teeth in it, Bill, but something that, when they get, all right, this is officially from the city, it appears that you have, you've diverted stormwater, you've changed the path of stormwater, and, you have to rectify it, or, you'll be in violation of city, I don't know, if you want to say city ordinance or state law, I guess. And you have, or say you have 90 days to correct it, something as similar as that. I don't know, what do you?
Knowing that the winter months are coming, as long as you said, there's a timeline and it's followed through on, we're not against giving them a little more time to deal with it, because the ground's getting solid. and it's getting hard. So, I mean, I walk around in my yard and I know it's harder. And I mean, I would love it to be rectified in 90 days, but I understand that the Wisconsin weather you probably know better than I do what that's going to mean.
I've lived here my whole life, yeah.
Yep.
Mr. Wilborn, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think we gotta have something to have a little authority over it, because Eileen Alt's got a situation where her neighbor did remodeling and just buried tile coming right off his downspouts right over to her yard. I mean, couldn't be any more blatant than that.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. Michael or Sarah? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of what the process would do and what recourse somebody from the city would have. So even if there was, like, let's say somebody was clearly able to demonstrate that the water was coming from residence one onto residence two, what would be the city's role in trying to get reconciliation? That's where I'm a bit lost.
Well, when we do new
Would the city
construction,
have
and
taxing
people don't
authority?
stop it,
Would
they get
be a
fined, right?
permitting issue? Like what would that be?
Yeah.
And then how would it be? I mean, that's the whole thing too, is if it was able to be demonstrated, that's great. If it was able to be rectified, that's great. What happens if the reconciliation actually didn't fix the issue? Would this be an ongoing process year after year after year until at some point they have to lower their land so the water can actually slope back the other way? That would be my concern, and that's where I wouldn't necessarily want city staff involved in those sorts of things.
Sarah?
My thought process is kind of along with Michael, where thinking through just wanting to be consistent with future requests and things like that. I don't know how that would work then, that we would make sure that decisions or any types of communication were consistent for all residents. And I don't know if Bill or Valerie could give us guidance then on kind of the legality behind it, that I just don't know how that works, but I think the idea of making sure we're consistent for all residents seems important for me, just that if we'd have something documented and how we would move forward with that and what the specific steps were, I think that would be really valuable, because I just think consistency and then the legality make me nervous, that I just don't know. I don't know how that's done.
One other thing I'd like to add is, I live out in Quarry Vista, and my house is, and I see a lot of this development out in Fitchburg as well, where the space in between the houses is getting relatively small, yet you've got these, nice tall downspouts that can collect a lot of water, shoot it all down, and there's not a lot of places in between houses for that water to actually discharge it. If you're going to do it responsibly, it's probably going to go in the front or the back of the house. But if there were something where I'm shooting water straight over to my neighbor's house, there's not a lot of places that it can dissipate. It's going to go into a window well, it's going to go into his basement, and all that other good stuff. So, I'm looking at this maybe a little bit more proactively too, and thinking maybe this is a building permitting thing, rather than a public works issue. I don't know what that does to, existing houses. Is it, putting up a structure and just making sure that it's documented during that process? So if some harm does come to property, the city has documented it as part of the permitting process, said yes or no, this is going to do this. If this does happen, here's the city's responsibility to provide you with the documentation that was collected at time of permit. Let, you guys figure it out, or go through whatever, let the two parties go through whatever legal process there is. But for the city to kind of get involved and say, okay, there's definitely a violation here, What are we going to do with that? Are we going to make sure, are we going to resource staff to make sure that the problem is fixed? Are we going to have the authority and the time and the ability to say the problem has not been rectified? We are taking you to the next step. Is the city then suing the homeowner on behalf of somebody else? Is the city just doing it? And the city is now a plaintiff in a court hearing, something along those lines. That's where it starts to get a little bit resource intensive in my mind. And again, that's where I'd like to kind of stop in that direction and say, maybe this is something we can do proactively during a permitting process rather than be involved in some sort of, after the fact resolution.
But when you
I
see
like your-
somebody
I like your
purposely
thought.
doing it, and the city sees it, they gotta have some legality to stop it while it's being done, instead of letting it go on, right?
Good point, Dave. A number of years ago, one of these shyster developers, we had an ordinance, you, certain trees you couldn't cut, in the subdivision. Well, that jerk, he cut the tree down and he told the city, sue me. And it was a big oak, a very old oak, and obviously it would cost us more to sue him than, but I don't, if I wanted to make, I made some change like that and I'm flooding my neighbor, I don't, I think we need some, it's as simple as this. I feel that, we have an ordinance, you can't change the natural flow of water. And if you did, then you're in violation of state and state law. And, say you're required to mitigate this. And, again, I don't, how much teeth you want to put in that, I'm with Michael and Sarah. I don't want the city involved any more than we have to be, but at the same time, I don't want every dispute, that, well, we gotta go to court. If the city could help mitigate this a little bit, then everyone wins. I guess I'm looking for a form, that residents could fill out, showing, providing evidence that the natural flow of water has been changed and is affecting their apartment or affecting their property negatively. And, we ask the city to really do no more than say, yes, we see the evidence of that, and the other property owner would be required to restore the natural flow. And see where that takes us. Maybe if we would have had that 5 or 10 years ago, maybe, we wouldn't be discussing this right now, or Kathleen would have a dry backyard.
It'd be nice.
The bottom wood in her wood pile wouldn't be rotten all the time.
Yeah. Yes, gets kind of muddy. Well, and I think the reason, obviously there's a problem between us and these neighbors, but I think the thing that we keep going back to is that they have affected the natural stormwater runoff. And I don't know if, when you're saying looking for a form or something, is there a formal complaint that the city has or that we have that would be specifically tied to that they have altered or affected the city's control of the stormwater runoff from the, what I'm saying?
So,
Yeah, I think the resident would need to do that. We got a myriad of things, trying to keep track of.
I mean, we want to help the city do what they can do to help us. So yes, like you said, documenting it, any, filing any proper paperwork, anything like that we can do, with a little assistance on what we need to provide. Yes, we are definitely on board to do that, to get some kind of resolution here.
Bill, in your research, were there, and I apologize if I missed this earlier, were there specific city ordinances about this that you found, or was it just kind of the what you have in your document here.
The ordinance that Dave pointed out, in our stormwater management ordinance, if, fill is added to a site, technically they should be getting a permit for that. If it's over so many cubic feet or so many square yards of disturbance. So if they never got a permit for that, we'd have to figure out how many cubic feet or cubic yards or square yards of area that was disturbed, and blocking the drainage. If it is blocking the part that I'm kind of getting hung up on is, the private property part of things. Is what right does the city have to go onto their property and say you have to take down your garage because you're blocking drainage now?
Hopefully it doesn't have to go that far. I think the biggest issue is behind the garage, but.
Right, but, some improvement was made over time that blocked the drainage, whether it be the garage or it was just filled in because they wanted a higher garden or whatever it was. How does the city go in and say, nope, now you gotta change that, even though they didn't have a permit that tied it to that improvement?
They were advised by a person who, our neighbor that passed a few years ago, but he used to work for Bruce Company. So when we were having a verbal discussion over this one day, he actually came in and he's like, well, here's what you need to do. This needs to be, you could put a trench here and then if you want to put some drain pipe in, whatever you want to do, but you've got to create, I forgot what he called it, but like when you have a swill or whatever that allows water to pass through, and then, he advised them on the best way to manage it, and she did the exact opposite, in my humble opinion, is that instead of creating this area for the water to flow, she filled it all in and raised it up. I mean, she raised it almost 2 feet. So, and it's dirt. It's not rock, it's not gravel, it's not large rock or anything. It's dirt. She put dirt in and then she planted flowers and grass. So she did pretty much the exact opposite as she was advised.
And that actually brings up another solid point too, is, when somebody does this, and say, neighbors kind of come and go and they're property owners and they leave, is there something like a special assessment that gets, transferred over at time of sale if somebody is advised to rectify the situation and they don't, does the city then have to get involved at time of sale? I mean, there's so many different variables that seem to kind of go along with that. And it is a sticky situation, but again, I just, advocate that the city just, the city makes the recommendation, as best as possible and let the two parties still reconcile that on their own.
Yeah, and that's something that's never going to happen without basically going to court. And I can honestly tell you that we've tried talking to them about many subjects and there is no. We actually had an officer try and mediate another situation and they refused to meet with us, refused to have the mediation. So, and she very much so intentionally did this.
Yeah, and it is unfortunate in many respects.
Yes.
I think over the past few years that I've been on the board, we've heard a wide variety of issues, kind of come up between, two different parties, and even with ordinances that are in place, it's like Dave said, it's great. Sue me. Yep. Let's see what happens.
Yeah. Right. And that was our instance this summer because we mentioned to the city that we've had problems with the drain pipe in our driveway, that it plugs up and it has finally collapsed and it broke, the cement around it broke. And basically we were told it was our problem. We had to fix it ourselves. The city was not going to pay for it or do the work. And so we've spent probably about almost $1,000 cleaning that up this summer. And that's all part of the stormwater runoff again. And so we took care of the front side of the property issues. The city did for us we have an issue where they've graded in the front of the house here because that, it gets plowed, it gets run over by large vehicles, so it sinks. And so they've actually, the city has been nice enough to help us with that area. But yeah, and so, you know, we get this all cleaned up, we get this all straightened out, but then it stops right about there because it drains properly and then it stops. So, and, you know, I think that our frustration is double fold, that it is stormwater runoff, which is by the control of the city. And we don't pay a ton of taxes for that, but we do pay for stormwater runoff. And we've never had any, except for the little bit of grading out here a couple of times in 20-something years. You know, it's all come out of pocket, including us paying the taxes. So very frustrating.
Dave, going back to your point too, again, if there, let's say there is, you know, somewhat of a, you know, first step, and maybe this is kind of where you're going with the form where a neighbor can say, you know, I'm going to go talk to them, something that, you know, something's off here. And, you know, is the first step of recourse, okay, well, I'm just going to file this complaint with the city. The city doesn't necessarily have anything to do with it. The paperwork is, you know, is collected. That way, if there was a permit that was pulled for this, you could reference the complaint with a permit, if that was granted or not granted. Like, that's maybe where the city could help out in some respects, is
That,
you know, this is,
that process has already been done.
yeah. So then the next step would be, it doesn't get resolved. Okay, then what? The actual resolution of that, you know, is maybe a little bit more cumbersome. And that's again where I think city should stay out of that mix. The city should, in my opinion, be responsible to really kind of help out, say, yes, this was a permit, this is when things were pulled, this is who inspected it, or no permit was pulled, this just kind of went up without any consulting from the city. And that way, residents are all armed with that information if and when they need to go get resolution from a third party.
That's where I was going, Michael. I think we're along the same path. You know, the city could determine, you know, you've made a change in, the city could say, you know, you've made a change that has altered the natural flow of water in violation of state law. And, you know, you need to correct this. And then, you know, they could choose to do nothing. I don't want to put it, you know, I don't want us in the middle of the enforcement game, but the city has determined, you know, to say the city has determined that you did this as a violation of state law. They do nothing. Well, then Kathleen, you have that official document from the city, or referencing the lack of building you know, permits. And then if you have to go down the legal route, you have the high ground, is what, you know, I don't want to put the city in the middle of it, but I would like us to write some, you know, kind of an official, you know, official determination, or
I think we gotta have a little something that the city can go in there and say, you can't do this, and stop it if they're doing it. You know?
That's kind of where we are too. It's like, that's the frustration of it. It's affecting the stormwater runoff.
yeah. I'm back to the developer scenario, you know, where he cuts the tree down.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
sue me. I have lawyers on staff, and you know.
right. And I understand the difficulty of the city being involved. As you said, then it becomes a thing where the city gets involved in every teeny little dispute. But this has been going on for years. We're not wealthy people. We're pretty simple people. And honestly, for us to take them to court, that's, you know, going to be difficult as well. But as I said, it's the city's stormwater runoff that's being affected as much, but then it's turning back on us as the property owner, because the problems are all for us because of that water runoff. So,
Well, the rain, Kathleen, I got correct. You know, the rainwater isn't the city. The city doesn't generate. You know,
I know
most
they
of
don't
it's
generate the
falling
rainwater.
on your property. Most of it's falling on the property. You know, we're responsible for on the roads themselves.
Yeah. Well, the backside of the property where we're at, because of the tracks and everything else, that also is stormwater runoff area on the backside, because it flows down to there. If you go by the tracks on Irish Lane, you can see that certain times of the year, there's a little, like a creek there.
Yeah, it's that railroads were made, to have
Yeah,
eventually a drainage swale on each side.
right, right. And I know someone that lived down on Irish, had actually at one time, the city had also told them that you're on this creek is here, it's gonna be here, it's part of the stormwater runoff, it's part of the design, you can't affect that. So it's on the back side of the property, not on the street side of the property as much, so, I think, yeah, I don't know. I know it's hard for us and it's hard for you as the city, but it's very, very frustrating that we've been going through this for years and, yeah. It's like,
Well, I know, Madison would pass something and then threaten to throw you in Waupon for not, be pretty heavy-handed, and there's a reason I don't live in Madison and why I have such a disdain for the city of Madison. We won't go down that road, but I just feel like we need to, like Dave said, we need something in there so they can't just do it and say, sue me if you don't like it,
Well,
Right.
and so that would be the flip side of this again, and I'll just kind of end on this thought. It's people can finish off their basements and do electrical without pulling permits. We as a board are not going to stop people from doing what they are going to do to their property. We can advise, we can have ordinances, but at the end of the day, once if there is some sort of resolution that needs to happen where one is affecting somebody else, there's an entire system built up for that. The city is great for individual properties, making sure things are permitted. If I'm going to sell my house and I did electrical work that wasn't permitted, all of that stuff, you can go through and you can get the city to help you document that stuff. I see us really maybe being able to help out in that respect. But again, if you've already got the paperwork and you've gone through and you've done all the documentation at this point, I don't know that there's anything more the city could and should do. It really does need to come down to an authoritative body making a yes or a no decision one way or another. And I think everybody on the call is aware that that's not going to be the city. It does probably have to be the courts, unfortunately. Because the city just doesn't, at this point, it just doesn't have the teeth unless we want to start, developing ordinances and policies around that whole thing. And that gets into, council and way above the scope of this board.
right. And I think that is the part that we were hoping that we would get some support on. And I keep bringing up is the stormwater runoff, which is under the city's purview, that they've affected that. And I think that's another reason we're like, we need help here. These people are not just affecting us, they're also affecting that as well. But it's very frustrating.
Catherine, I apologize. What was your address?
2482 South Sayin Road.
Thank you.
So what would the board like to do? I'd still like to have a form that could be submitted. Excuse me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with restarting the whole process of filing the complaint or, as you said, some form to start the process to check into, as you were speaking of, the permitted process. Was it done properly?
I'm comfortable with having something, that doesn't really have any teeth in it, just a mere, I don't think that many people are watching, but just a mere threat of city getting involved sometimes makes people little, do things that they don't want to do.
I agree with you too.
Do the
You
right
gotta
thing.
have something with a little teeth in it, or else there's no sense of doing anything with it. You aren't gonna have little teeth in it to stop people from doing it.
Yeah. Dave, what would you have in mind as far as?
Well, I would like to see something in writing that states that if the city especially drives by and sees somebody that's already doing something like that, they'd have something on the books here that they could pull in and say, no, you can't do this, and stop it. But if you don't have anything in writing in your books, you're not gonna be able to stop them from doing it.
Yeah.
Bill, should we give you a chance to have one of your right-hand men or ladies to write something up or think something up and bring it back to us?
Yeah, I think I can, with what you've told me, I think I can get something written up. I'll have to check with the city attorney for, legal on that, just to make sure that we can have the teeth that you want to have.
I don't mean it has to be strict as could be. I'm just mean we gotta have a little something there where you got some teeth to stop something. That's
Right,
the thing.
yeah, it's,
Not just for us.
I mean, if a building inspector is driving by and they see a garage going up, they don't have a permit, they can stop that construction and, have them get a permit, double fee them, all of that. If, an engineer is driving by, they see somebody dumping some fill on the land, we have that right to stop and tell them, hey, you need an erosion control permit to do that because you're dumping more than whatever, how many square feet and cubic yards of dirt out there. So we do kind of have that, but it's, the little gardens that you don't see behind the houses that get filled in. It's hard to see everything unless we know about it. So, in those cases, it would be, the neighbor saying, hey, if you don't have knowledge that these ordinances exist, it's hard to, contact the city and say, hey, this person's in violation of it. But, I think we do have some things in place. It's just not well known and not, always seen.
What do you think about that, Dave?
That would be fine. Let's take another shot and have Bill, something up or, whatever we have. I just, like I say, I don't want us in the middle of disputes, but at the same time, I know plenty of people in this city that don't care, do whatever the hell they want and affect their neighbors adversely. And a lot of them are lawyers. Yeah.
God help us all. And, whatever you do come up with, obviously bring it back to us and we want to be helping as much as we can to help you help us and provide what we can. I think that some of the pictures we took probably were with our phones. So I may even have access to those, like in my Google photo files and stuff, so could reproduce those. So we don't have to wait till spring when it's all a mess again.
Thanks for your patience, Kathleen. I think we're gonna move on from this. I think we could be here all night on this right now. We aren't pushing you aside. We are concerned about the issue and we'll try to get some teeth. Try to get some teeth in this, but again, if it is ordinance violation, we have the teeth right now to deal with it.
Good. That's more than we've had in the past, so I appreciate that very much. Appreciate the work that you guys have been doing on that, and I can probably get off the call and let you do whatever business you have left.
Thank you, Kathleen. Appreciate your
Thanks.
time.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for your input on this. It's a tough issue. If it was easy, it would have been solved already. We'll move on to agenda item 6B now, the one I tried to jump ahead to already. Resolution R-153-20, approval of stormwater utility maintenance plan. Do I have a motion to approve this resolution?
Motion to approve resolution R.
Moved by Schroeder. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Granetsky. Bill, why don't you run us through? I enjoyed reading through this. A lot of good information in here. If I could ask you one thing, so our people watching or residents don't have to necessarily read through the whole thing. What are the five main? If you say I had to pick five main maintenance responsibilities that we have that are the most important for our stormwater system, what would they be? Putting you on the spot a little bit, but.
I would say our main ones are flood control, water quality control, and we do that through, oil control, sediment control, native vegetation. We've got a lot of ponds that we have out in place that, we use as a method to improve the water quality. We have street sweeping out there, and we've just got a lot of facilities that we've accumulated over the years to help us with those environmental aspects, to clean our stormwater, to reduce runoff from different construction sites, and erosion controls, and protect our wetlands and our environmental corridors. So if I had to pick the top five, I would say, we've got a lot of wet ponds throughout the city that the stormwater is collected from our streets, routed through pipes and ditches into those stormwater facilities. It slows the water down and allows the sediment and pollution to filter out into those ponds. So we have to maintain those. We have to make sure that we go in and we dredge out the material when they start to fill up to a certain height. We have to make sure that the slopes of those ponds are not eroding. And we plant them with native prairie plants so that they are, they're a lot susceptible to absorbing the stormwater from the facility. So it doesn't all go back right into the streams, into the lakes. We're trying to get that back into the groundwater and use that for, the vegetation that needs the water. So we've got that vegetation part of things that we're trying to maintain within the ponds. Same with the infiltration practices that we have throughout the city. We have a number of facilities that we actually infiltrate the water into the ground. They're specifically managed for that. So we'll filter out the big particles and allow the stormwater to go into those infiltration areas. And it's got sands and soils that will allow the water to infiltrate. And we've got, some deep rooting prairie vegetation within there that will help absorb that water, get it back into the groundwater system where it needs to be. So we've got, this whole plan here. It looks like we've got, 14 chapters in it with lots of appendices. And we did look at it, originally back a few months ago. And then the city attorney recommended we go through CIVMIC to make sure that, our language in there was not too strict, where we shall be doing things, but we'll try our darn best to get them done. So we rephrased some of the language within there to accommodate that. But essentially, we've got our whole city that we're trying to manage our stormwater. We're trying to keep the pollution out of our lakes and streams. And we're trying to mitigate the impacts of development and construction throughout the community.
Thank you, Bill. Excellent explanation. A number of years ago, I knew the DNR. I'm not sure if he's still in the job. The DNR regional person started regional stormwater administration, and at that time, he told me we were probably one of the top 5 municipalities in the state for managing our stormwater. Some of that being a newer city, but some of it, we were ahead of things. You'll hear a lot of talk. Want to prepare the city for climate change. I feel we've done quite a bit with our stormwater maintenance practices. Preparing the city for climate change. But I'll shut up here. I'll let you other board members ask Bill questions or give us your thoughts on this maintenance plan.
I really like it, Bill. I think it really looks good.
I'll let Claudia know. She put that all together, our stormwater engineer, and it's a really good document, and I think it's something that we'll be able to follow within reason, not overstretching our capabilities, and we're gonna, she did a really good job with this.
Bill, I'm gonna put you on the spot again. I do this quite a bit, but what would be, what would be our average cost of stormwater maintenance in a year, approximately, I'm not gonna hold you this, but give people a, a kind of order of magnitude, give them an idea of what we would be spending on stormwater maintenance over a year period. That's assuming we're not doing, a lot of huge projects, but we're, more in the maintenance mode, typical maintenance.
I don't have that number off the top of my head, but I could get it real quickly.
Could you get it for next meeting? I think it interesting, this is, it's coming, our stormwater maintenance, people are paying a fee on their taxes for this. And, this is what it's costing us, to maintain these facilities. I had one other question, it's more of a design. I grew up in northern Wisconsin, and, it's all wetlands. About half of the land is wetlands in northern Wisconsin, or swamps, and they're particularly good filters of water. You'll see, one thing I've noticed is wild rice is a very good, filters water very well. Is there any possibility that we would sow wild rice in our basins, or to both attract wildlife and improve the water quality, or would that be a bad idea? Maybe it clog up the pond. I'm just curious about your thoughts on that.
Not exactly sure. We are contracting with a native vegetation specialist for the maintenance of our natural ponds. And that's something I can throw out there as an option, just to find out.
Could you ask him? My thought is, what happens is then you have vegetation in the pond, and it dies and decays and would fill it up. But maybe that would offset the water, the water quality improvement possibly. All right, thank you. Let me know what they say. Any other questions for Bill on this? Again, a lot of work went into this document. I'm proud of our department, what we do, our stormwater maintenance, establishing this back in 2003. I think we're doing this the right way at a reasonable cost to the ratepayers. Okay.
I had a couple questions that I tried to flag just while looking through. So hopefully these aren't off the wall too much, Bill, but just was curious to get your perspective on a couple things. The first one for page 2 for the public education and outreach. I think this is great, and I think this is a fantastic starting point to serve for that public education. But I was curious, would we ever consider doing like some FAQs? Like, I just think it's been interesting serving on this public works board, and the questions that we get about neighbors, water spouts and things like that, where I do think there's some questions that I feel like we've heard a couple times, where would we ever consider adding just those hot topics within this document? Another one that I just noted quickly is that I've received calls about pool water discharged, and I know we have the page 23 has a whole set on how to discharge water, but I just think within my short period of time, it does seem like there's some questions that have been asked several times, where if we are taking the stance of trying to provide public education and outreach, would it ever be considered to add kind of these FAQs or something along those lines?
Definitely. Yeah, we can post those. We can make some. It can be part of this document. It could be, just a quick link on a web page, or things like that. Definitely.
Yeah, and just for consideration, because I just think that we do get a lot of concerns. These are definitely areas of interest. And then another question I had is that for the clearing of clogs, and that it was on page 9 where it was listed that maintenance can be delayed or omitted based on work within that year. And that's one where I get that, because there's so many people and only so many people and so much work. But that does make me really nervous. Where is there something that you could recommend, or something that we could try to highlight to show how valuable this work is, just like for the clearing of clogs and for that infiltration system? Those, if they're not maintained, I just think that they can be really detrimental to neighborhoods and land where it would just be great if there's something that we could do on our end to try to promote, to have that be just part of an annual maintenance checklist, that it would be considered each year? Is that, I don't know.
Yep.
That terminology of being potentially omitted made me very nervous. That was basically my takeaway.
Okay.
So for consideration, then my last one was for the vegetation management. I think it's awesome that we're promoting native vegetation around ponds, and definitely recognize that the prairie root structures can be so valuable. I was curious if it's called out how long it takes to maintain those root structures and just have those areas developed. Would it be a consideration to add a call out as to how the developers could be involved within new pond development? Because I know they do have requirements, but just knowing how long it can take for that vegetation to take root, is it something that we could potentially add in to say, when new developers create a pond, they're involved for so long, we're checking in on the vegetation system, just because it would be really unfortunate if we have new developers not accountable for the ponds and the vegetation that they should be providing, knowing that it does just take a really long time for these root systems to develop, but knowing that they're really valuable.
Yep.
And those were the only comments I had.
All right.
I love it. I think it's fantastic.
Sarah, excellent comments. Thank you. Thank you. The FAQ, I think that's a super idea.
And by all means, if you have those questions that you're getting on a routine basis, send them over and we'll be sure to get them in there.
I will. Thank you.
No need to worry, Sarah. Our developers are always accountable, aren't they?
I didn't know about the tree story till tonight. That makes me really sad.
I think it was in Seminole Forest somewhere. Yeah. Okay, we'll call a vote. All in favor of resolution R 153-20 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Motion carries. Next, resolution R 223-20, amending 2021 general fund and capital projects, fund budgets, reduction in parking lot resurfacing, sidewalk, path maintenance due to anticipated reduction in recreational programming fee revenue. We have a motion to approve this resolution.
I so move we approve resolution number R-223-20.
Moved by Wilborn. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Schroeder. Okay. I think we're all well aware why this would have come up. You know, I think it's no secret. At least myself, I was after the council to try to rein in costs in the middle of this pandemic with people out of work and businesses closing and things like this. So that's, you know, I think this is a consequence of it. Bill, do you want to give us, give us the review of this here?
As the packet indicates, the recreation staff, the program for the recreation it's partially funded by revenues brought in by those programs. And in 2020 and anticipated 2021, those revenues are almost non-existent due to the COVID pandemic that we have right now. As a result of that, the council has asked that we find ways to fund those revenues offsets through 21, and that Public Works participate with those revenue offsets through the reduction in a couple of programs. The first proposal that we had would be to reduce the parking lot and resurfacing program by the full amount allocated in the 2021 budget, which is a little over $75,000. and to also reduce the sidewalk program by the balance of that, which is about $17,000. If I had my purview, or if I had my preference, I'd ask that we try not to use that 17,000 out of the sidewalk program and to try to find that from some other capital program. But the direction that we've had so far is to focus on those public works programs. Another item that was recommended that be reduced was the building maintenance fund, the contribution that we make for that. But I recommended against doing that due to, we don't know if the building is going to break or what system is going to break. And there are some systems that are right on the edge of needing a major fix. So I asked that we just focus on two programs, the resurfacing and the sidewalk, with the preference being if we could do the sidewalk in another, delay that into another program or put that into another program, such as what's it called? There's a parks improvement program that we possibly do that.
Thank you, Bill. I concur with you. The building, all that one really bites you in the behind, if you cut that. This I can live with this. Board members, your comments or thoughts?
Do you think it would be hard to find another place to get it from, Bill?
Alder Frada had a question.
Yeah, can I speak, Dave?
Yes, you can, Julia.
Okay, so good night, everyone. So this is a resolution that I put together, and the idea was that, as you know, we need to look for option to keep 2 employees in the recreational department. There are several options. One of the options that is coming is to reduce the COLA for all of the employees. The COLA system is the annual raises that employees get. So, I don't think that it's fair that the rest of the employees have to, have this, some of them they were expecting for this increase, it's a 2% increase. So this is what we were looking for, other places where we can get the money. And I know that is what I am bringing here is not good, I know that, but believe me, I look at the 21 budget, I look at the 21, what were the areas where I can get this money. And I know that, the $75,000 in the, in the parking lot resurfacing is no ideal. But what we are doing is trying to get at least $75,000 from that fund. We need $92,000 to cover the layoff of the 2 employees. And then the idea is, we are delaying 1 year more, resurfacing parking lot. The idea is to keep 2 employees in the payroll because those employees really, really depend on the health insurance through the city. And I cannot, I don't think that it's fair that we have to lay off people. They are gonna have the health insurance and there are global pandemic. So that one strike me very hard on me. So this is what I was looking for this option. The sidewalk, we are asking only $17,000 to move from that fund. I don't think that is too much. I don't like the idea to go through the park system because already the budget for the park system is, is not the great one. And removing some park system project is, I think we are delaying project where people are using more the parks now under the global pandemic. We don't know how long it's gonna last. And then there are some parks that they are like Tower Hills and James Hughes. I think they are the 2 targets to go after those funds in those projects. One is in a low income area where basketball court, where people really need to have those amenities. And the other one is Tower Hill, where there are a lot of activity. I live 2 blocks away from that park. and there are plenty of activity during the summer with soccer league, with baseball league, and I don't think that it's fair to remove, money from those funds where people use. The parking lot, I noticed the parking lot is in the Maquis shelter and it's but I think the parking lot can be okay for another year with the delay. And but I am asking that you reconsider why we are bringing this resolution. I know it's not hard, it's not easy to to go after this public works fund, but believe me, I look everywhere and this is a replenishment. So I think that it doesn't mean we are using all the amount in the fund. We are delaying the funding in the fund for a year. Particularly in one, and the other one is removing $17,000 from the sidewalk. So that's it. This is the logic behind this. We were asked to find for funds, for money, to be able to keep 2 employees in the payroll.
Thank you, Julia. I would politely disagree with you a little bit, about the employees. We had, if all the rec programs are canceled, it's hard to keep them, we had neighbors lose jobs, businesses, and then we keep 2 employees on who don't have any responsibilities. But you're an elected official and I'm not, so I'm comfortable with this resolution. It's a good step. Other board members?
I'm comfortable with it too.
I just had one question. I guess I remember when we passed the first proposal with personnel and parks. And in parks, we had asked kind of if staff could go back and review budgets to see if there was anything that could be cut or delayed. And so I was surprised to see this resolution that I had anticipated hearing back from staff first, that just we'd hear kind of their expertise. Bill, do you know if that was still being done, or if this was just kind of a resolution from alders? That I'd love to hear as to what kind of staff thought.
Yeah, I received an email from the finance director just stating that these are the funds being considered for reallocation, and if I had any comments on it, to respond.
And also, I want to add that my original proposal was to get money from the building fund, and then Bill, I received an email from Misty and say, Bill, doesn't think that is a good idea. He will prefer that you take the whole amount from the parking lot instead of going through another fund. And I say, okay, fine. The other thing I want to tell you that, if you look at the resolution in the last page, I put in the B, it further resolved. I really want to be, I want to make the recreation and the staff to be accountable. So the idea is that they need to present the council at the end of the year with a program of activity for at least the 6 first months. You know what I mean? The idea is we are going to try to find the money so you can, stay in the payroll, you can continue be employed by the city, but you need to show us, okay, what you're planning to do. What is the plan for the next 6 months? There should be accountability. We are, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yes.
So this is something that I add, and I want to mention tomorrow council too, is they need to have with the first meeting of January, they need to have with a plan, because we know that there are other municipalities that they have the same issue that we have with the recreational department, but some of them, they are doing outside the box activity and trying to maintain, and to at least generate some income. And I think the idea is to say, okay, show us a plan. What do you have in mind? Because eventually with the vaccine, maybe at the end of the summer, everything is going to come to a new normal where we can, go back to the parks and people can rent the shelter and the soccer league and the baseball league can come. But what is the plan for the first 6 months? I need to have that accountability plan, in place.
Julia, do you know if the funding for these rec positions come out of the rec budget itself, or does it come out of the general fund?
What I will say that a big percentage is covered by the recreational activity, the income that those activities generate, and some part is coming from the general fund.
Do you know a
So what
split,
we are-
Julia? What percent? Do you know what percentage? Is it 80-20?
I don't remember. It was in another. I think it's in the council agenda for tomorrow. There is some information there because I have seen that, but I don't remember. I can ask Misty to send that information to you, but I don't remember the percentage. But yes, there is an allocation, but I don't know exactly what is the percentage.
All right, thank you.
I'm trying to think of the inverse of this and if it actually applies. If we had a shortfall in the public works budget because of a water main break or whatever it happened to be, would we go after recreation to say, we need more staff to deal with this issue, or we've got this emergency? Would we go after a different department's budget or a different funding source into the city?
No,
We probably wouldn't.
I don't think that is. I am an accountant, so I would say accounting wise, no.
Yeah.
But I think this is like an emergency. This is a one-time stuff that we are doing because we are trying to save these 2 positions. But maybe the council decided tomorrow night that we don't want to save the position. Who knows? But I understand your position and I agree with you. We shouldn't go to other people's budget to,
Yep, and I get it. I'm not on this board. I'm not necessarily advocating one way or another. The finance committee does very good work, and the council does very good work. I would be opposed to this because we're responsible to work through public works projects. I don't necessarily know, if this is something that's been in the works, and I've been out to, it looks like the kids crossing area, maybe the thing to, or Bill, maybe you have some input as to what actual projects would get delayed. My fear, if the kids crossing I've been out there, I've got the 2 kids, parking lot gets a little rough, people drive a little bit wonky, they avoid potholes, whatever it happens to be. If the city's responsible for resurfacing, especially in parking lots, I'd like to see that money stay in place.
Okay, the kid crossing parking lot was resurfaced this summer because, I live 2 blocks away from the park and I walk every, what is in 2021, I think, Bill, is the shelter, isn't it? The big shelter parking lot.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. And again, if this is in and around this area, if I'm kind of understanding the map, that kids crossing parking lot was in pretty bad shape. Looking through that main shelter, I don't necessarily know that I've been over too far that way, but my argument would still be kind of similar, as if this is a highly populated area. The last thing you want is to have people dodging potholes, especially around park areas where people are recreating.
Really, it's hard because my kid from park is in my district, and
I hear you. It's tough for everybody, but I'm taking a look at what's best for the public works here.
Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah. So I don't expect that you guys are gonna be happy with this at all, to be honest. You know?
We understand the severity of it.
You know, at least, they ask us to bring some solution, and I am bringing some solution. It doesn't mean that you are gonna be happy with that, or you say, no, Julia, I'm sorry, I'm fine. You know, at least I tried to come up with solution.
I got you. Yep.
You know, so.
Like I say, Julia, I begged you guys find some way to cut some money, you know, as families have had to find a way to live within their means, and I was hoping the city could do the same. I'm gonna call a vote on this, close our discussion. All in favor of resolution R 223-20, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Post.
And Brunetsky voting in opposition, the motion carries.
Okay, thank you very much, guys.
Thank
Okay?
you
Bye.
thank you for contributing. Our next, you get page down here, okay. Resolution R 227-20, approving termination of agreement for land development, Hatchery Hill, amendment to land development history, Hatchery Hill, and amendment number 2 for agreement for land development of Hatchery Hill. I have a motion to approve this resolution.
Motion to approve.
Moved by Granetsky, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Schroeder. All right, Bill, what's the background on this? I think it's fairly straightforward.
Yeah, this developer agreement is attached to all the properties that you see on the agreement there. And in order to relief or have the agreement terminated with those properties, or the property owners that have requested that it be terminated, and Public Works is in agreement with that.
Fully developed, no more public improvements required for the
Correct.
initial. Yes, okay. Any questions? Okay, I'll call the vote. All in favor of resolution R 227-20, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, resolution R 228-20, a resolution approving a Dane County cost-sharing agreement for the county MM/McCoy Road intersection improvements. A motion to approve resolution R 228-20.
I so move we approve R 228-20.
Moved by Wilborn. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Granetsky. Bill, recap.
This is an agreement with Dane County and the city of Fitchburg to split the cost of the local share of the state municipal agreement for the intersection at MM and McCoy improvements. And the city is going to be picking up 33% of the local share, and the county is 67%.
Bill, does this include the signalization? Is that part of this cost sharing also?
Correct. It's the signalization and the intersection improvements. Yes.
Okay, very good. And what is the 33% approximately? What is that dollar amount for the city? Is it,
It's
is it you recall?
146,000.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Thank you. All right, any questions for Bill on this one? Okay. Then I'm gonna call a vote. All in favor of resolution R 228-20, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Last, resolution R 144-20, resolution authorizing a cost-sharing agreement with Dane County for traffic signal installation at Lacey Road and County MM intersection. Do you have a motion to approve this resolution?
Motion to approve.
Moved by Granetsky. Do we have a second? Second by Schroeder. Discussion, Bill? similar to the previous one?
Similar, except, the city's cost share is 25%, the county share is 50%, and 25% to the developer.
Okay. And this, again, this is both, is this just traffic or is this an intersection improvement also in this cost?
It was the traffic signal and, the repaving and, islands and things.
Okay, very good. Questions for Bill from the board? All right, seeing none, I'll call a vote. All in favor of resolution R-144-20 signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Announcements, our next board will be scheduled for December 21st at 5:30. Does anyone know if they'll be unavailable for that meeting?
I'll be here.
I think I'll still be at the hotel in New York here then. Michael and Sarah, I assume you can make it, and keep Kim in your prayers. Hopefully she can be back by that one also. So it brings us to agenda item number 8, adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
We got one quick question for
Yes, Michael.
Bill.
I'm sorry.
Bill, does the city have any policy around, alternate side parking where there is no technical alternative side? And the reason why I'm bringing this up is I noticed, throughout the city, we've got quite a few especially newer developments where there's an alley that goes out to a main street where there may not be there. And what's happening, at least out here in Corey Vista as a good example, is we've got parking on both sides that's, very, very close to the alley entrance. And so the fear is that, and this has kind of been the experience so far, is that the plowing can't necessarily happen, and because it's, there's technically not an alternative side or there's not an even side, that the parking is there constantly.
Okay.
And so what is going on is, maybe there's, an ordinance that says alternate side parking. It's assumed that if one side has an odd number, that the other side is an even number. If that's the case, great. Signage would be helpful. If there isn't, when we're starting to work with maybe some of these alleyways, are there opportunities to have no parking within X amount of feet of that, so that as alleys are being plowed, there's actual access to that, especially not only for plowing, but looking at if emergency services needed to get in there, and we've got parking on both sides. It's going to be a really tight fit. If there's parking pretty close to the actual entryways of some of these alleys. So if you could look at that, or if you know off the top of your head.
I think the statutes require no parking within 2 or 3 feet of the driveway entrance.
Okay.
And that's just by statute. Sometimes we paint the curb within that. If we need a little bit more room, we'll end up putting up some signs or something like that.
Okay. All right. I can email you, offline what we're looking at here, but kind of then similar conversation about the alternate side parking. If there is no alternate side, we've got a row of houses on one side and a retention area on the other. Is that considered an odd versus even, that sort of thing?
Okay.
Thank you, Michael. Bill, I just have one other thing. It was too late, but Sarah had requested the Fayette Glen speed limit. Can that be included for next meeting?
Yep.
The agenda?
We'll get that.
Very good. Okay. Then, nothing else. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Shore. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Gronetsky. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for your attention and contributing. We went over a lot of things tonight. Not an easy meeting. Thanks for your contributions. Be safe.